What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Clutch Crew Sports. I'm your host, Zach, and wow, what a crazy week of football to talk about. Basketball's still going on. This is the most sports in a weekend I think I've watched in a couple of years, so I'm excited to talk about everything that happened. Let me introduce you to the rest of the crew.
What's going on, guys? It is Connor, the co-host with the most, and pretty excited right now because the Steelers are up 26-10 with only 5 minutes to go. So, looking like Zach's tweet there on Twitter, or I don't know if Eric made that, but one of the two who made it on Twitter about the Steelers joining the 1-0 club is about to come true. So, very excited and excited to talk about all the sports that have been going on. So, yeah.
And what's going on, guys? This is Eric, your ranting co-host here. And if you had told me going into week one that the Washington football team and the Jacksonville Jaguars would both be sitting at first place in their division going into the Monday night game, I would have told you were crazy. But I'm glad it happened for the Jags and looking forward to talking about all of it.
What's up, guys? It's Nate here. Looking forward to talking to you guys about pretty exciting opening week of football. Glad the Pats were able to get in the win column. Glad the Jags were able to get there as well. A little bit surprising there. So a lot of stuff to talk about.
Absolutely. So, as custom for the future, we're going to start off these episodes with Around the Shield, which, in case you didn't catch last week's episode, is just going to be us talking about various different topics related to the NFL. Could be discussions like what we're going to have next, and then it also could be talking about how the actual games went. So Connor's prepared the first discussion here, so I'll let him introduce that topic, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, so I kind of wanted to talk about, the style, not really the style, but the level of play that was going on this week in the NFL. There was a lot of concerns about all the players, the gameplay being not very good and, everybody being disorganized because there was no preseason, there was not a lot of practice. So I kind of wanted to touch on kind of what we saw in week one, like the goods and the bads. I would say, I think you guys would probably agree with me that most of the teams looked pretty good. I mean, a lot of teams started slow, and that was to be expected. They haven't played full-on games in almost a year now, a little bit less than that, but kind of like 9 months since they've played full-on games, and a lot of them looked really, really good for the most part. I think there were a few exceptions. Like I know the Bucks had a lot of really stupid things that happened in their game. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but the Bucks were pretty disorganized. But for the most part, a lot of the teams looked really good. I know I can use the Steelers as an example. They were pretty bad at the start of this game. The offense looked terrible, but as the game went on and you get into that flow, you get back into playing, the offense starts looking a lot better. So and I think another thing that was really, a negative from this week was the officials. I'm sure you guys would agree with me on that too. Some of the refereeing in these games was pretty bad. There was
but really, that's nothing new, though. I mean,
very, very true, very true. But I think there was probably more of a light shown on it in this game this week because they didn't have the preseason. Like especially last night with the Rams and Cowboys, like that offensive pass interference on the Cowboys that pretty much cost them the game. The good acting job right there from Jalen Ramsey. So, but I guess I'll let you guys give your thoughts too. But what I wanted to touch on was, do we think the preseason, is this a illustration for possibly not having a preseason at all, or maybe a reduced preseason in the future? So I would have to say, in my opinion, I think the preseason does still hold value because it gives teams that playing time. But definitely after seeing what's happened this first week, I would be all in favor of definitely at least reducing it to 2 games. Like they don't need 4 games to do it. I mean, even the young guys looked good in the first week. So I'm interested to see and hear what you guys have to say on this topic.
Yeah, I'll go first because I'm a contrarian to Connor and his opinion there. But
what a shock!
I mean, it's not something like I'm gonna pound my fist on the table about. Like, I'm not like that about this, but I think this has really shown what I've been thinking all along, that we don't need a preseason. It's terrible to watch games that don't matter. It's really, even as a diehard football fan as I am, it's really hard to sit down and watch an entire preseason game, because usually as the game goes on, the quality of play gets worse and worse. Maybe catch the first drive and that's it. But no, I think the value of the preseason really is for young players and fringe players to make the team. But an example of this is week one. The Jaguars had 16 rookies on their team and still won without having a preseason. So it shows that it can be done. You can have young players that still perform well in week one without having a preseason. And I think the biggest drawback to having a preseason is you get injuries. Every year you get injuries, and injuries are unavoidable. So I'm not going to say like, but there are some injuries that would happen in the preseason that can shape teams' entire seasons, regular seasons anyway. So yeah, a lot of week one injuries happen and whatnot, and a lot of practice field injuries happen, but it's just another risk to the NFL, and you could see quarterbacks get hurt or key players on teams get hurt. It's just something I think now that we know that we can have a successful start and not have like 10 fumbles on kick returns and just terrible quality play, that we can be fine without a preseason, and it paves the way for that 17 game season. And with that 17 game season, having a preseason really is going to drag on to that and potentially make down the line quality worse. So I'm in favor of eliminating the preseason. But Eric, I'll go around to you. What do you think? What side of this do you stand on?
Yeah, going into the season, I really wish they could have had at least one preseason game before the season started, but I was pleasantly surprised at how good the quality of football was yesterday. I mean, I watched 4 of the games yesterday in their entirety, and all 4 of the games I watched, you could tell there was a little bit of rust, but that happens every week one, whether there's a preseason or not. So I actually think I'm more in favor of there being no preseason, but I'm okay if they were to reduce it down to 2. But I think at this point they definitely have to at least cut it down to 2 games at the bare minimum, because 4 games is way unnecessary. If they were going to keep them, I would be okay with that, just because it gives the teams a better chance to evaluate their fringe, borderline players are making the team, like Zach was talking about. But if they were to also cut it out completely, I'd be okay with that too. So I'm fine either way. But after being, really surprised about how well the quality of the games were yesterday, I would be okay if they decided to cancel it too. I'd be cool with that. Nate, what are your thoughts, man?
Yeah, so I'm kind of with you guys here. After watching these games, they were definitely a lot better quality than I was expecting with no preseason. I definitely think they could go on without the preseason going forward. Kind of like echoing what you guys said. I think a lot of players would be in favor of it. Gives them a chance to avoid injuries and all that good stuff. Obviously, they've shown that with just a standard training camp and some scrimmages, they can be ready to put a watchable product on the field. And I think the only benefit to the preseason always has been for, like what Zach was saying, like the practice squad kind of guys who are just trying to get on the 53-man roster or get picked up by another team. But I think the way they could go around that is to keep these expanded practice squads like they have for because of the COVID changes to the rule book. I think if they kept the expanded practice squads to give these guys a chance to hang around, I would be 100% in favor of getting rid of the preseason.
All right, there you go, guys. I guess 3 votes to cancel, 1 to reduce. So that's where Clutch Crew Sports stands on the matter. So let's now get into some of the games. Obviously, we're not going to be able to talk about every game, but we've highlighted 3 games to talk about. I'll let Connor start with the first one here. Philadelphia at Washington. All of us picked Philly to win this game, and of course, we were all wrong. And Connor and Nate, this was your guys' survival pick, so you guys were even more stunned. But talk us through that game. Like, how big is this of a loss for Philly? What does this mean for Washington? Like, this is shocking, man.
Yeah, especially. I mean, we were talking beforehand. Philly kind of screwed me over. I mean, I don't think I've ever had a situation where in the first week of the season I lost my survival pick. So, I mean, and especially since, it was just a complete collapse on the part of the Eagles. I mean, I was watching that game. I mean, I was kind of flipping between that game and the Raiders and Panthers game. And, I was watching the game like, man, Philly is dominating this game. Like, this is playing right into what I thought at the beginning of the year I keep wanting to say Redskins. Thinking right at the year that Washington was going to be the worst team in the NFC East. I was like, they're going to be fighting for that number 1 pick with the Jets and the Jaguars, which we'll get to that later. I mean, because they surprised too. But I think it's really bad news for the Eagles because considering they won the division last year, and obviously the NFC East is always a very winnable division. I mean, there's no one team that really stands out. And the fact that they weren't able to take down Washington, and the fact that, I guess it's good for them that the Cowboys lost too, because, the Cowboys are pretty much the consensus favorite to win the division, but giving up 8 sacks in the first week is also really bad. So I don't know if I can expect Washington to keep this up. I definitely want to, wait another week, but it's definitely a very bad sign for the Eagles if they can't even defeat Washington, who should have been one of their easiest wins on the schedule.
Yeah, seriously. I'll give my thoughts about the Washington side. I gotta say, I picked Philly to win this, but in my head I was thinking, there's a legit chance Washington could win this. And it ended up happening. I was still surprised it happened, but this is huge for Washington now because, like Eric said at the start of this podcast, they're going to be first place in their division after week 1.
First time in forever.
Yeah, so this is something I think absolutely, if they can run with this momentum, I'm not sure what their schedule looks like for the future games, but I mean, what a complete turnaround from an organization that's been in so much of a mess to pull out a win against a division rival week 1. I mean, like you said, I think this is. I do think there is something to this. I don't think this is a fluke. But wow, this is why the NFL is great, though, and we'll get to another upset here, which Arizona at San Francisco. All 4 of us picked San Francisco to win this game, and of course we lost. Arizona wins 24-20. This one, for me, got me more off guard than the Philly-Washington game. I was more confident San Fran would be able to win this.
For sure.
But Eric, what do you think about this? Are you higher on Arizona now after this, and even lower on San Francisco?
I'm not lower on San Francisco just yet. I mean, I had them before the season in the conference championship game, so I'm not gonna panic for them. But I felt like DeAndre Hopkins was going to be a great addition for Arizona. So, and he obviously proved to be very good for them in this game. And you could similarly too, you could tell in the Chiefs-Texans game, you could really tell that Deshaun Watson missed having DeAndre Hopkins out there. You could tell, the guy's a difference maker. And so he came up big for them in this game. And so I am higher on Arizona now going forward. They're still in that really tough division, but they obviously beat one of those tougher teams. So they could definitely do it. And I want to just say real quick too about the Washington football team game. If you watch the NFC East video, you'll know that I mentioned in that game or in that episode that I had a lot of concerns about the Eagles' offensive line with the injuries that they've had there, and that obviously proved to be a factor. And Zach talked about how good Washington's defensive line is in that episode. So when you've got a great defensive line going against a bad offensive line, that type of stuff is going to happen. I wish I had seen that coming because football generally is one in the trenches. So, but I did get that pick wrong. But yeah, it's
at least it wasn't your survival pick.
I didn't. Yeah, see, I wasn't confident enough in the Eagles to pick them for survival. But I like Zach. I wish I had thought more confidently of Washington to get that right. But yeah, Arizona, they're going to be a fun team to watch this year. So we'll see what happens. Nate, do you have any thoughts on either of these two games?
Yeah, I didn't really get a chance to watch much of the Arizona game. They definitely looked a little better than I thought. DeAndre Hopkins came in and obviously knew he was going to be good, paired with Kyler Murray, but they looked a lot better than I expected. The Washington Eagles game was definitely the surprise for me. I had them as my survival pick, so I'm already got an X on the board there, which I'm not too happy about. But I haven't given up on the Eagles yet. They were leading big at one point in the game, and I think they have enough talent on offense. It's just you have to do a better job of, you're gonna get Carson Wentz killed back there. You can't give up 8 sacks to the football team like that. So if they do a better job up front next week, I think they definitely can still compete for the East. I think I like the talent they have, but that was definitely a shocker week 1 there.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll get to the other upset later on, but want to go now to the game of the week, Buccaneers at Saints. Nate and I picked the Bucks and got it wrong. Eric and Connor on the winning side of this one, picking New Orleans. And I'll give my thoughts on how the game went. As a Buccaneers believer, I'm not too worried at all about this game, how it unfolded and everything, just because the Buccaneers shot themselves in the foot so many times. I know they're accustomed to doing that, but it's week 1 on the road at New Orleans, and like no preseason with a new quarterback and a new offense. A lot of new players on the offense. It just didn't bode well. I should have seen it coming, but I thought the raw talent would still outweigh them. But they got to get things back in order, especially on special teams. That was big. But the good thing about this is it's only week 1. These week 1 games will mean nothing by the time we get to the playoffs, when this will actually matter. And I think they have a lot of opportunity to correct things, and in some ways, this could be seen as a positive for Buccaneers fans to think about, because, it's going to be one of those things that, okay, you're supposed to be really good. You're supposed to win all these games. You're on prime time, all these games, and you come out and you lay an egg, and Tom Brady doesn't play very well, and he gets called out by Bruce Arians. Like, it's one of those things that it's really good for them that it's happening in week 1 and they have time to adjust. And they get the Panthers at home this week, which should be a win for them. So I'm not concerned about the Buccaneers. And something about the Saints that kind of concerns me a little bit is their offense, because they scored 34 points, but a lot of that came from there was a pick 6 and there was a fumbled punt by the Buccaneers. So the Saints offense, I thought, was settling for field goals sometimes, and Drew Brees didn't have a great game. He was efficient, not turning the ball over much, but Michael Thomas was really shut out of this game. Alvin Kamara had to carry the team on offense, so it wasn't like, in my opinion, New Orleans just absolutely destroyed Tampa. I think Tampa still has a legit shot of winning the NFC, so I'm not personally not too worried. I'll go over to Nate since he picked Tampa also. Nate, how worried are you about this loss?
I'm definitely not that worried about the loss for Tampa. That was one of the teams I was pretty high on coming into this season, and I think they still have. I think they're still in good shape. The one thing that really stood out to me was I know we just talked about how good the quality of play was without a preseason, but out of all the teams I watched, the Bucks looked extremely sloppy. Like you touched on the muffed kick return and
Mm-hmm.
all that, just all kinds of mistakes and penalties that you just can't have. And especially with a guy like Tom Brady, who throughout his career has really like, demanded excellence of himself and the guys like next to him. Um, I think that's definitely like kind of not what we're used to with his kind of, the teams that he's led, I guess. Um, so I don't know. I think he definitely didn't look 43 out there. I will say that. I think they're in good shape overall. They just have to clean up those mistakes. And the Saints are still a good team. I think that was still a good win by the Saints. So yeah, I'm not really worried about the Bucks going forward as long as they, clean up those mistakes, get Mike Evans healthy, more involved. Um, yeah,
All
that
right,
definitely a
yes.
surprise though. But
Yeah. Let's I'll go over now to Eric. You picked the Saints to win. How do you feel about how this game went and potential future matchups?
Yeah, I think you summed it up pretty good here. I mean, the difference in the game was the mistakes that Tampa was making, and then New Orleans being able to capitalize on them for the most part. I mean, when the game first started out, and like New Orleans went like, I think they got like a first down, and then they punted, and then Tampa went right down the field and scored, and then New Orleans had to punt again, and Tampa got the ball. And I mean, I was worried at that point that Tampa was just going to start running away with it, because it seemed like New Orleans couldn't do anything like offensively or defensively, and then Tampa was just steamrolling them. But then New Orleans settled down and playing better, and they came back and had a great game after that. So it was a fun game to watch. I think it's just still too early to tell
Mm-hmm.
between the two teams, but New Orleans getting the win obviously, helps them big time, with potential, tiebreakers in the division standings later. So, and obviously I'm a Drew Brees fan, so I'm happy about it. So, so yeah, go Saints. Connor, what about you, man?
Yeah, I mean, I think this game is actually really, it's a credit to both defenses for the most part. I mean, the Saints had a pretty bad day on offense, but the Tampa Bay defense was in his face, most of the night, and the secondary held up. So I think you're going to see a lot more out of the Saints. I don't know exactly who they're playing next week. I don't remember. They're playing the
Las Vegas
again.
Monday
They're playing
night.
right side. They're playing the Raiders. So I mean, I think you're going to see a lot more out of the Saints offense next week, because they're not going to be going against such a great defense and with Tampa Bay's defense, which I will say Tampa Bay's defense definitely. I wasn't like too high on them before the season, but they definitely gave me a good showing last night, and they proved me wrong a little bit. So we'll see if they can keep it up. And yeah, it's just about cutting down on the mistakes for Tampa Bay, because I mean, there was the punt that was blocked, that they fumbled, and then Brady had one of his interceptions wasn't really his fault. It was more of a miscommunication. But then that second interception, that was the pick six. Like, he can't be doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And then really just all the stupid penalties they had on offense. I mean, there were so many false starts. There were so many.
Mm-hmm.
There was like a delay of game at one point. Also on defense, they had a couple times where they could have gotten the Saints off the field, but then Vita Vea jumped offside, and then they had like a pass interference or something that let the Saints keep going on third down. So the Bucks definitely need to. I mean, they need to find their discipline, because they were the most penalized team in the league last season, and anytime that you um, have that as your moniker, that's not good. So it like you guys said, it's definitely way too early to tell, but still, it's good news for New Orleans that in the first week of the season that their biggest competition in the NFC South, and they get the first they draw first blood. So be really interested to see how it goes out next time when they end up playing Tampa, because I think another thing that New Orleans was obviously hurt by was not having fans. The Superdome is one of the loudest stadiums in the NFL, so not having the fans there, you lose that home field advantage. So more than likely, by the time that they play next time, Raymond James Stadium is going to have fans at it. So I'll be really interested to see how that goes.
Yeah, for sure. So let's now talk about the Jaguars. I'm happy that no, I'm happy that
Yo.
that's going to be a topic here. Really, I'll just be talking with Eric about this a little bit briefly, but for me, I picked the Jags to win this. You can look at Twitter, you can see I was off on the final score by like a couple points. Sue me, you know. But I think a lot of the NFL did not see this coming. But I did tweet that we hadn't seen any preseason, we hadn't seen any really much of the training camps. Teams didn't open those up. So the only thing that people were going off of were the big names that were being cut and traded. And I'll give a lot of credit to the management and credit to the coaching staff, because when you release Leonard Fournette and you trade Ronnie Harrison and you trade Unique Ngakoue, you do all those moves in a matter of a week and you say, oh, they're football moves. I was like, yeah, right. But looking at how those young guys stepped up and played, James Robinson, sorry I referred to you as a president in the 1800s, but you did a lot better than that, football wise. So he was a big X factor for him instead of Fournette. The safeties, Josh Jones played really well for him. Really, Miles Jack, I thought, stood out on defense as an impact player. One of the best games I'd seen him play. And then the rookies. I mean, C.J. Henderson came up huge with, like, I think 4 pass deflections and an interception. Chason had an interception called back for a penalty, but that could have been huge. And Laviska Shenault never hit the ground on offense. I mean, there was one play Eric will remember where it looked like he was going to get knocked down by the defender barreling in on him, but instead the defender bounced off him and fell down, and Laviska stayed upright. So, and then not to mention too, it helps when your quarterback goes 19 of 20. I mean, I love Minshew, but I didn't see that coming. I think Minshew is really the true leader of this team, and I'm excited to see what happens moving forward. Now we have a very winnable schedule for the next couple of weeks. We go to Tennessee. That's going to be a tough one, but we have Miami at home. We've got the Bengals. We've got the Lions and Texans coming up. So some very winnable games on the schedule for this team. I think it was critical that they got a win in week 1. Yeah, I just loved how this team played like a team. You didn't see stupid penalties. You didn't see the defense yelling at each other for when they messed up. You saw a bunch of guys just having a lot of fun, just being about the team. And I think this is a huge step for the right direction. I'm not a fan of tanking at all. I think it's bad. I think it creates a losing culture for your team. And I'll take the win any day of the week. So, Eric, what about you? What were your thoughts watching this game?
Yeah, I mean, you summed up all the details of the game perfectly. I mean, so many players that are either like rookies or new to the team, like stepped up big. And I have to agree with Miles Jack too. Like, it seemed like when he was put in that middle linebacker spot, like he seemed kind of lost playing there, but bringing in Schobert to be the middle linebacker and him going to his more natural position at weak side linebacker, I think that has made a big difference for him. So I think he's a lot more confident now. So I'm hoping he can keep that, going forward. I mean, if I have to have a complaint about the game, it would be that it seemed like the pass rush was not very good. Phillip Rivers had a lot of time on pretty much all of his throws, and he dropped back like 46 times or something like that. It was a lot. So to only get a pressure on him once or twice out of all those attempts, that's not very good. But I'm not going to be too upset about that just because I know how good the Colts offensive line is. So, they did have a really tough test there, but they are definitely going to have to be better there if they're going to, keep playing like this. But I'm excited, man, not just because we won the game, but one other thing I'm going to add too was I saw Gardner Minshew's speech in the locker room after the game, and he just has such a different mentality than people from like the old regimes. Because I mean, I remember when Gus Bradley was the coach, and we would be like 0-6, and then we'd finally win a game. I mean, you would have thought the Jaguars won the Super Bowl looking in that locker room, like, and Gus
Mhm.
Bradley would be like, "Yeah, we won. We got to win. Yeah." Like, and and it's like, yeah, it's great to get a win, but when you lose 6 times in a row first, like, you shouldn't be that excited, you know what I mean? But with this being the first time the Jaguars were above 500 in a good while, I was kind of expecting the guys to be, similar to that, yay, we got a win attitude. And obviously they were happy, but Gardner Minshew said, don't be content with 1-0. We haven't even scratched the surface yet. He was saying different things like that. And just that quality of leadership just gets me so excited knowing that, these guys want more. These guys want to prove that, this win against the Colts wasn't a fluke. They want to prove that they can be a good team. And I mean, I'll be honest that I was trying to be optimistic, but like when we traded Yannick, I was like, okay, that's fine. He didn't want to be here anyway. I wasn't surprised by that. But then when they cut Leonard Fournette and traded Ronnie Harrison, I was like, what are we doing? I was like, we're giving away our best players. I thought for sure that they were going into tank mode. And I said in the AFC South preview episode that, I just had the feeling with the way Khan is managing Caldwell and Marone that the Jaguars could have gone 0-16 this year, and I felt like they would still be back because you don't just trade away all your veterans and supposedly best players for draft picks if you have to win now. So I just had a feeling that the management was doing everything possible to set us up for failure. But obviously they knew some things that we didn't know, and I'm very impressed with this team game one and, looking forward to seeing what they do in the future. So if they beat the Titans, like Zach asked me if my expectations had changed after winning the first game, and my expectations haven't necessarily changed. But I will say, if we beat Tennessee next week, I'm rooting for the playoffs.
Tampa Bay, here we come.
Let's go.
For the Super Bowl. All right. Yeah, so that's going to wrap up Around the Shield for this week. We're going to transition now into the lock board, week 2 of the lock board. So let's take a look at the standings. After week 1, Eric and I are at the top with 6 points. Connor's in 3rd place with 5, and Nate's got 2. So Nate's going to be picking first in our draft tonight. Eric, you lost a matchup with picking the Rockets to beat the Lakers. Nate, you lost a matchup picking Boston to beat Toronto. I lost the Cleveland beating Baltimore one. That was bad. And then Connor, you lost 2 NFL ones, like the Philly over Washington and then the Panthers over Raiders game. So everything
when I said Philly screwed me, they really screwed me this week.
Really. But we're on to another week. So we've got the betting lines updated for week 2 of the lock draft. Nate, you're going to be on the clock here with your first pick. Let me go over to the betting line so you can see us here in slides too. But where are you going to go with the first pick for this?
All right. Yeah, so I've been trying to do a little bit thinking about that before the start of this episode. There's a few places I can go. Obviously got a lot of choices here.
It's hard when you can pick anything.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely, you can pick literally anything here. I think I am gonna go a little bit more
risky.
Last week I was definitely very cautious. I didn't know, how many of the NFL teams were gonna look, how many of the college teams were gonna be. So I kind of tried to play it safe with the safe picks. For this week, I think I'm gonna go a little bit more upset-minded and try and catch up with 2 guys in the point standing. So I'm gonna go with I'm gonna take Cincinnati over Cleveland this week.
Okay, going for a possible 3-pointer there with Thursday Night Football.
Going for
Connor. Connor, you've got the second pick here.
Yeah, I know what I want to do here. I will say with this game, my opinion on it has changed actually in the last day. I would have gone the other way yesterday if we did this, but my mind's changed a little bit, and I want to get this one, now, because I'm pretty sure Zach's gonna pick it if I don't. So I'm gonna actually pick the Denver Nuggets beating the Los Angeles Clippers.
Dang you, Connor!
I knew it. I knew it.
Connor, you
I gotta regroup now.
I knew you were gonna pick that. I was like, I'm gonna
Yeah.
make Zach really mad with this pick.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna go Minnesota over Indianapolis. Indianapolis is favored by 3, so I can get
really?
it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Okay.
Surprised by that.
That's a 3-point pick, right? If you get that.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
3-point
Indy's
pick.
a 3-point
Dang
favorite.
it.
So
That one was pretty high on my list.
We'll say that's probably one of the safest 3-point picks you can make this week.
For sure. All
right, Eric.
Well, since we've had a lot of upset picks here, there's not too many big upset picks left that I feel like confident in, so I better get one while I have this opportunity. I'm going to take the Jaguars to beat the Titans.
Ooh, that's going to be a 5-pointer, isn't it?
Yep, that's the biggest NFL spread this week.
I mean, I know we haven't seen the Titans play yet, but I feel like the Jags beating the Colts.
Well, if you turn on the TV to ESPN, you will see it right now.
we should not be a 10.5-point underdog after getting a win. So I'm gonna, just for the sake of the Jags, I feel like that's a slap in the face to them. I'm picking my Jags this time.
All right.
Oh, Nate has left the chat.
Oh, Nate just said his Wi-Fi went out.
Is he gonna lose his pick here?
Or we could come back to it, I guess.
Yeah, we'll pause on the lock draft.
The first round, if you want to see the second and third rounds, just stay tuned in. Hang in there.
Yeah. All right, so we'll go now to the bubble ball talking about the NBA. This is the first time we've had this segment on the show now. So there's 2 NBA-related topics that I want to discuss, and I'll start with the first one being Game 7 between the Nuggets and Clippers. This is going to be played the night that we release this episode, so it'll be interesting to see right away how it turns out, predictions. But the Nuggets with another huge comeback in the series, down 3-1, like they were with Utah, and then they go out, they win Game 6, or they win Game 5, they win Game 6, and now we're at a Game 7 here. And I'm gonna pick the Nuggets. Like Connor was right; he knew I was taking Denver. Yeah, so I just think Denver. They've had the experience. Here's the thing: is they were in a Game 7 at this spot last year against Portland and lost. They had the Game 7 against Utah and they won it. Their offense is just really dynamic with Michael Porter Jr., Jamal Murray, and Jokic. That's an underrated, legit big 3. And the Clippers have been really underperforming, just letting their foot off the gas when they get big leads. I know the energy and stuff should be higher for a Game 7, but Lou Williams has really disappeared from this series. Lemon Pepper Lou is just not living up to 6th Man of the Year title that he has. So with that being said, Playoff P could make an appearance. But I just think the Clippers are just the weaker team right now. I mean, they had so many chances to close out the series and they haven't. Obviously, Kawhi's got the most experience in these situations out of anybody on the floor, but Denver's got nothing to lose. They're just, playing as a team. Just I think Denver truly believes that they're going to win this game, and the Clippers, now that they've lost these last 2 games in a row, I think they're wondering what's happened to us. This whole time they've been just looking forward to the Lakers. They've kind of overlooked Denver, and I think they've allowed, obviously, Denver to have a chance to get back in the series. And I think Denver's going to take advantage of it. I think it'll be close, but I like Denver to win this. Eric, I know you're my fellow NBA man. How do you? Yes. I know you picked the Clippers at the start of the bubble, and I think the start of the season.
I have to stick with my team of choice here and go with the Clippers. But I mean, I will say I definitely agree with what you're saying, where it seems like they may have overlooked them and were looking ahead to the Lakers. So, but if losing 2 games in a row to them and having the series tied up doesn't wake them up, then I don't know what else will. I mean, it's been really disappointing seeing them play like this, because I've been a fan of Kawhi Leonard through most of his career. Like, I was a fan of Paul George when he was on my Thunder, and felt like he was having a great season last year because of the shoulder injuries. Like I even though I'm not a big fan of LA teams generally, I want this Clippers team to go far and do well, and a loss to the Nuggets would just be really demoralizing for them, because they've had all the hype going in about that they were going to be the best chance to beat LeBron and AD and the Lakers, and now they're going to Game 7 against the Nuggets, and they struggled against the Mavericks in their early series. So I'm definitely not as confident in them as I was, at the beginning of the year, and even going into the bubble and everything. But I just got this feeling, though, that they're going to find a way to get it done. I will say what I think is going to make the difference from the Clippers games that I've watched this year. Some of their good games and their bad games. When teams play fast-paced against the Clippers, that's where the Clippers seem to struggle. If there's if they give up a lot of points in transition and things like that, their defense gets exposed there in that area. But when they force the other teams to play a lot of half-court sets and they slow the game down, that's where the Clippers are really good. So if they can contain the faster pace of the Nuggets, if they can prevent them from getting transition buckets, force them to run a lot of half-court sets, I feel like the Clippers will win the game. But if they, like I said, if they don't, then the Nuggets take it. And that would just be a huge surprise, because a few days ago when we were, first starting to talk about things we might be doing for this episode, I figured with the way this series was going, by now we'd be, talking about Clippers Lakers and, who was going to win that series. But now it's like we're talking about Nuggets and Clippers in a Game 7, which I did not expect. But I'm cool with the Nuggets, so if they win, whatever. But I think most people want to see the LA showdown too. But the Clippers have got to step up, though. They can't keep overlooking the Nuggets.
Yeah, I guess before we go back to the lock draft, because Nate's looking in slides and texting me about that. But Connor, what made you change your mind? I was surprised to hear that you changed your mind.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's mainly just a momentum thing. I mean, I think probably one of the reasons why yesterday when we were talking about this, I was picking the Clippers, is because for me, it's so hard to bet against Kawhi Leonard. I mean, he's proven time and time again that, he's reminiscent almost of Michael Jordan in terms of how big he comes up in the clutch moments. I mean, he had that clutch, albeit like super lucky 3-pointer at the end of, the series against the Sixers last year. And then also he came up big in the NBA Finals against the Warriors when not a lot of people thought the Raptors had too big of a chance. And even going back to San Antonio, the series against the Heat, the Spurs had fallen to the Heat the year before in 7 games. And, the Spurs really weren't looking like the same team. Like Duncan and Ginobili and Parker just weren't the same. And Kawhi was the one who stepped up and carried that team through the playoffs. So it is very hard for me to pick against Kawhi Leonard. But Denver, I mean, they just have all the momentum on their side. And I think more so than any other sport in the NBA, having momentum is incredibly important. I mean, I don't know, the way that the Nuggets came back from the series last time being down 3-1, and they're especially now doing it against a better team. Like I would have said this time around, because against the Jazz, I wasn't too surprised that they maybe did that. But especially against this Clippers team, I mean, they're just stepping up in a big way. So I think the Nuggets are ready, and I think that they've got the momentum and they've got the skill to take down the Clippers, and I'll be really interested to see how it goes.
Yeah, definitely. No football on tomorrow night, so this will be what we're gonna be watching.
Know what I'm watching?
Yeah. So Nate's back with us now. Nate, you can start us off now with the first pick in the second round.
Oh, he's muted.
Okay.
Nate.
I mean, I know who he's gonna pick.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, that's weird. I don't know how I muted myself there. Sorry about that. Yeah, I had a little bit of a technical issue there, but yeah. So for my second round, I am gonna go with one that hopefully is a little bit more of a sure thing, at least by what the spread says. But I'm gonna take UCF over Georgia Tech this week.
Yep. So going with a 1-pointer there. UCF
Yep.
at Georgia
Are
Tech.
you sure, man? They beat the Seminoles last week.
Yeah, I'm a little bit unsure, but I mean, beating Seminoles in 2020 is not the accomplishment it was a few years ago. So feel a little bit better.
Yeah. All right, Connor, now make another pick for us, man.
All right, so I thought I was going safe last week by picking the Eagles over Washington. So, I feel like every week I need to have at least one sure thing. So this time around, hopefully this doesn't bite me in the butt again. Like my safe pick doesn't bite me in the butt again. I'm not picking the Eagles again, but
that's where you're going. I'm like,
no. I mean, especially not after what happened last week. And the Rams are a good team, so I wouldn't do that. But I'm going to take the Chiefs over the Los Angeles Chargers.
Okay, another
that's about
safe
as safe
one
a
there.
pick as any there.
All right, yeah, I'm gonna go a safe one too. The safe ones, it's a run on safe picks here. I'm gonna go Tampa over Carolina. Also prevents anybody from getting a potential 5-pointer. So
I don't know if anybody was going to be confident enough to pick
I don't know, but you never know.
No.
All right, Eric.
All right, so I am going to take another upset, although not as big of an upset here. And I will wait till the next round to do my safer pick. I'm going to pick the Giants over the Bears.
Oh, you suck, Eric.
Mitch Trubisky
Some
was
snipes in this draft.
Mitch Trubisky was really bad in that Lions game, other than the fourth quarter, and I don't trust him to have another fourth quarter like that. So even though the Giants don't excite me, I feel like I can get.
I don't know, man. Daniel Jones looked pretty good in that game against the Steelers.
I haven't seen it yet, but
Yeah.
He had some moments in that game where he looked pretty good. So that's why you suck.
I guess
I'm gonna pick that one.
I trust Daniel Jones more than I trust Mitchell Trubisky. So
Okay. All right, Nate, starting off the final round here. What you got?
All right, so I'm not going to make a basketball pick this week because that didn't work out so well for me last time. So I'm gonna stick with the NFL here, I think. I'm going to they took the ones I was looking at. I think I'm gonna go Atlanta. Oh wait, did anyone take that already?
No,
No.
that's game's good.
Yeah. I want to go with Atlanta over Dallas. Try and go for another 3-pointer there. Get caught back up.
This isn't basketball, Nate. No 3-pointers.
Yeah.
All right, Connor, take us away on your next one.
Oh boy. Okay. I've been left with a lot of not good options. I've been trying to look at stuff, but Eric stole the Giants over the Bears, and then I was kind of considering that Atlanta over Dallas one. So, I think. Well, actually, I know what I'm going to do. I am going to pick the Rams to beat the Eagles.
Okay, yeah, that's the closest game of the week. So definitely
Still a
a
3-pointer
chance.
though.
It's still a 3-pointer. All right, I'm gonna go with 3-pointer too. I'm gonna go to college football and take Houston to beat Baylor. That Baylor game last week got canceled due to COVID. I did something about Baylor. That's a bad omen, I guess. And the Big 12s look really bad this year. So If that game gets canceled, though, that's a good reminder, though, because if these games do get canceled, the way we fix that is you can pick any game. They just have to be of the same point value. So in my case, I had that game as a 1-pointer, and I switched it to KC as a 1-pointer. So yeah, but hopefully they play that game. Eric,
well,
finish
it
the draft
was
for
it was
us.
Louisiana Tech that had the COVID issues, not
Oh,
Baylor.
okay,
So they should play it.
Okay,
Okay.
so for my final pick, this is going to be my safe choice and my ultimate true lock of the week. Maybe my survival pick, but I don't know yet. But I'm going to pick the 49ers to beat the Jets.
Yep.
Remember, Zach asked me earlier if I was concerned about the 49ers, which right now the answer is no. But if they lose this, then I will definitely
Alarms
be concerned.
Alarms
The
going
alarms
off
will be
there.
sounding.
Yeah, the alarms in Northern California are going to be going off too, because you got the JETS suck.
Yeah, seriously, man.
All right, so that wraps up the lock draft for this. It's an interesting lock draft. A lot of snipes this time. Should be fun to see how week 2 turns out. But let's get back to Bubble Ball and talk about the next and final NBA topic. And I'll let Eric introduce this. It's got to deal with the Rockets. So, Eric, take us away.
Yeah, so obviously the Rockets just got eliminated by the Lakers 4-1. And this is just an interesting topic because the Rockets have a lot of interesting decisions to make going forward. And obviously the news just broke, not too long ago that D'Antoni was stepping down as coach. So obviously the first thing they got to do is figure out who their new coach is going to be. But I don't follow coaches and stuff, like who's available too much.
Yeah.
So I don't really have any suggestions to make for that. But in my opinion, too, I don't know about what you guys think, but in my opinion, too, I really think they need to do a major overhaul of the roster. Sorry, James Harden fans. I know you're heavily going to disagree with me here, but I don't think there's any way that the Rockets are going to win a championship with James Harden on the team. I'm not a believer in him. I feel like his game is limited to either step back threes or driving into the paint and trying to get a foul.
That's flopping.
Yeah, that's I said it the nice way, trying to get a foul. But yeah, that's kind of what I meant. But the flopping the head back and the beard goes up in the air, I'm not a fan of watching this guy play basketball personally. But I think if you're the Rockets GM, you really need to take a look at this and consider overhauling the roster, because I also don't think you're getting anywhere with Russell Westbrook either. Like his best attribute to his game is his athleticism. But now that he's getting a little bit older, you can tell he's starting to lose that a little bit. And it's only going to, get worse every year as time goes on. So they really need to take a look at this and say, are we going to win a championship with these guys? And if not, then they need to consider blowing it up. And I know the Thunder got a lot of flack going into last offseason when they traded Paul George and Russell Westbrook. I mean, everybody thought for sure they were tanking, and I kind of thought the same myself.
I know, because you abandoned me on the take a walk and
Yeah,
eat a taco train.
Exactly.
You never did that.
I know. Well, I mean, the Hornets were in the playoff fight for the whole season. So
Yeah, the Hornets did better than expected, and then the Thunder made the playoffs. So Connor and I didn't have to take a walk and read a book and eat a taco. But that's a really old episode, by the way, if you're wondering what
Yeah.
the hell we're talking about. But now the thing is, though, is that I've seen some interviews in the past with the Rockets GM, and he thinks James Harden is, God's greatest gift to mankind. So pretty sure he's not going to trade him. But even still, they've still got to figure out some things, because they need to, first of all, whatever coach they do get, it needs to be somebody that's not a not a coach that uses the same system that D'Antoni uses. Just shooting 800 threes a game and being like the only team to shoot more threes than 2-pointers, that needs to change, because what happens in these games when the three ball is not falling, it's getting close to crunch time, the defense is tightening up more, not allowing the drives as often. You need to have guys that can create their own shots and open up the mid-range game, which causes the defense to play differently, which then allows you to have more drives. But when they know all you're going to do is drive or shoot the three, and the three's not falling, they're not going to worry about the three as much. Then you can't get the drive. Then what are you going to do? And I feel like the Rockets have been exposed with that time after time. And also, too, with the playoffs, you're generally not going to get as many fouls. That's why James Harden's driving and flopping the head back strategy doesn't usually work. It works in the regular season, but it doesn't work as well in the playoffs. So to kind of bring it all back around, I mean, if I was the Rockets GM, I mean, Zach and Connor know this in 2K. When I feel like my team's not working, I blow it up. Like they
spends like 3 hours looking for trades.
Yeah, they know.
And then sometimes doesn't make any.
Yeah, I will research the crap out of trades and get the best value possible. But I don't think the Rockets are going to do that. But I think at the minimum they need to trade Russell Westbrook. And then the other thing they need to do is they need to get a true big guy, whether it be somebody in the draft. I don't think there's going to be too many free agents available, but
I think Boban's a free agent.
Oh yeah, get him. But they need a true big guy that can get rebounds, because that was another way they got exposed to against the Lakers there. I mean, when you're going against Anthony Davis and JaVale McGee at the same time, and your biggest guy on the court is like 6'8", like PJ Tucker is like one of your tallest guys. Like
PJ Tucker's only 6'5" too, and he's playing
center.
Yeah,
like that's not going to work. I mean, and the fact that the Rockets thought that was going to work is just mind-boggling to me. And I guess another thing too, I could rant about. I'm not going to get into it too much because I've been talking a lot, but like Rockets fans on Twitter just drive me nuts, dude. Just reading their tweets, like, and Zach, I got to give you props for, going after some of them on Twitter. Like, I
don't hold back on Twitter.
Zach and I got into a war of words with one of them.
Because to me, like arguing with somebody that's such a hardcore fan of their team like that, to me, it's just like, even if you know you're 100% right and they're 100% wrong, it's like arguing with a wall. It's not going to do anything, whereas like, that's why I don't mind debating y'all as much if we disagree on stuff, because I know we'll like respect each other's opinions and maybe open each other's eyes, or even if we don't, we're at least respectful about it. Whereas if I can't go on Twitter and say anything bad about James Harden because, he's a god. Or are you crazy?
He's the best player in the
NBA.
They might take a flight out to your city to go and fight you.
There's a guy we saw on Twitter apparently is going out to LA to try to whip on some Lakers fans or something. I wouldn't want him coming to Victoria to get me. Like, I just
Eric, James Harden's the best player in the league. He scores like 35 points a game. Huh?
Yeah, man, he's like the greatest shooter of all time, and but I can't stand Rockets fans. Like, I know Rockets fans in real life. Most of them are people that I've worked with, and like, they're cool. Like, I can talk with them. But Rockets fans on Twitter, y'all drive me nuts. That's why I don't even bother interacting. Like, just reading their stuff makes me want to throw up. Like, I can't do it. But basically, now that I've tried to bring this back around and calm down, they need to at least get a center and at least consider trading Russell Westbrook at the bare minimum. But if it was me, I pull what the Thunder did last year, trade the 2 stars, get a bunch of draft picks, get young guys like how the Thunder got Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, like a young guy that you can build around that a team would be willing to give up to get a Harden or a Russell, like, and then go from there. But I don't think they do that, but that's what I would do. I'll just kind of open it up to the floor, whoever wants to go next and talk about it and give your opinion on it.
All right, I'll go next. I basically echo everything you said, except really I'm gonna emphasize more the trading the Westbrook part. Like, they've gotta just dump him, period. I think even potentially cutting him would be an option, because they play so much. You saw in the Thunder series, they played so much better without him than they did with him. So I think even if this is a hot take, but even if they don't trade him, I think just cutting him is going to benefit them. And I like what you said about the center. You made great points there about the new coach not being the D'Antoni system. But I think the most realistic and the biggest thing that the Rockets could do to get better is to have James Harden change his game a little bit so that he has a mid-range shot that's respectable, because that's really been undervalued. But when it comes to playoff time, like you said, Eric, in those crunch situations where you need to get a shot up, I mean, Kawhi Leonard is money when it comes to that. And I know
he's a god from mid-range.
Yeah. So I saw CJ in the playoffs last year go berserk with mid-range shots. In today's NBA, they're not flashy. They're not, going to show up on the Sports Center highlights, but they're really important to have. And I think Harden's obviously, he's a good three-point shooter. He's, a master at drawing fouls. So he's got those parts to his game. But if he can try and just practice on the mid-range and try and implement that more into his game, then so it's not as predictable as it is for the playoffs, I think that would benefit them a lot. But also, too, they got to get a center. They got to be more like a normal NBA team with regards to three-point shooting. And I do think Westbrook's got to lead the team. Like, I wonder if you guys would agree with me about that. But Connor,
that's like what I just said. I mean, at the minimum, they need to trade him because. But the problem is I just don't know if they will, because they gave, first of all, they're paying him a lot of money, so they're definitely not going to just like outright cut him. I mean, because they'd still have to pay him.
Yeah.
But they also probably aren't even going to want to trade him because they just last year gave up 2 first-round picks to get him. So, and I think they did pick swaps too in the other years with the Thunder. So, like, they're in a really bad position with their draft capital because of him. Now, I know, like, if things aren't working, you got to, cut your ties and, cut your losses and move on. But the problem is, these GMs sometimes get these egos, and when they invest a lot of capital into a player, like, they're not going to easily give them up. So I don't think the Rockets, I don't know if he
maybe they get a new GM.
Well, I mean, that's what maybe they should do that too. When I saw this interview where the Rockets GM said James Harden was a better scorer than Michael Jordan, and I was like, hey, you're an idiot. How do you have a job? So, yeah, I'm not a fan of their GM at all. Like, if I was their owner, I would be dumping him. But, it's going to be interesting to see what they do. I do agree with you, though, Zach. Like, they need to get rid of him because he does not help their team at all.
Yeah,
Connor, do you have anything to add to this?
Okay, I guess I'll go. I mean, I'm going to keep it short, but yeah, I mean, I pretty much agree with everything you guys are saying. I mean, Westbrook needs to go. Honestly, Harden needs to go too. I mean, like you guys said, just try and build around a young group of players. But I think the biggest thing, I mean, Zach was kind of emphasizing the Westbrook thing. I'm really going to emphasize the big man thing because, when you're appointed center, PJ Tucker, all he does all game when they go on offense is just go stand in the corner. Like, he has zero presence in the paint. I mean, he can't even really shoot mid-range shots. All he does, like, you just watch Rockets games. If you keep an eye on PJ Tucker, that's exactly what he does when they go down the floor is, we're going up the floor and then right to the corner. And the problem for him, too, is that, like, he's a good three-point shooter, but he can't even, only from the corner. His three-point percentage from the top is terrible. So it's one of those things, it's like, he has one thing to his game, and that's the corner three, and that's it. When you're one of your starters, like, when that's all they can do, especially your center, like, he's the appointed center on the team, that means you're not getting offensive rebounds. You're relying on low percentage shots whenever he gets the ball. It's just not a good situation for them. So, I mean, I think if they really can, get a big man, a good big man that can just get some rebounds and have an inside presence, because like you guys were talking about, the three-point shot isn't always going to fall. Like, yeah, you have nights where you're shooting 40% from three and, you're having a big night and, you're getting out to this big leak, so everything's falling. But then you have the opposite, which happens more often than not when they're not falling. And then you have no inside presence at all. So it's definitely something that they're going to have to look at. And, I definitely agree, too, that they're never going to win a championship with Harden or Westbrook, much to, all the fans on Twitter.
I think if Harden's not their best player, like if they were to get like a Kawhi or someone like that, someone better than Harden, I think they could. But as their best player, that's just not going to happen.
Yeah, but I mean,
seen
that's
too many times.
that's not going to happen though.
No,
they don't have the cap for that. But it's definitely, and especially with like you said, the people on Twitter. I guess I'll talk about that. Like, Zach and I got into an argument with this one guy on Twitter that was, talking about how the Rockets would have been in the finals all these years if they'd been in the East, and it just sounds like more excuses. And then I asked him, I was like, well, if they're that good, then why can't they, get past the Warriors? And he's like, oh, well, we lost to a dynasty. And I'm like, that just sounds like more excuses again. Like, if you're a truly good team, then you can get past that. And also, I will say the thing about, James Harden, this is another thing that came up on Twitter when we were talking, is that, like, Harden does zero things with his game to make the players around him better. And it's one thing that because this guy was talking about, he was saying that, oh, well, I mean, it's kind of like the LeBron argument, like, oh, well, James Harden got like 27 points and, I mean, it's a little bit of it's the LeBron and the Giannis argument, like, oh, they got like 27 points and like, all these assists and, the rest of the team only got like 9 points. So what more can he do? And it's like, well, Harden doesn't do anything to make the players around him better. The truly great players in the league make everybody around them better. I mean, Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, he made Scottie Pippen better and turned Scottie Pippen into an all-star. He made, the rest of that Bulls team better. I mean, even LeBron, to a lesser extent, makes those around him better. Kobe Bryant makes those around him better. And it's just, Harden doesn't do that. There's like, people always try and say how good of a leader he is, but I just don't see it. I see zero leadership in James Harden. So that's another thing they need, is leadership. They need a player that can really go out there and motivate the team. So overall, I think is the way to go. And I mean, obviously Rockets fans are going to disagree, but you can't control that.
Yeah, I mean, when you hit the same wall so many times, like, how can you not like open your eyes out? We'll end it there. Over an hour now, but good stuff, guys, and we'll see how the locks go, and we'll be back next week with another episode for you guys. Thank you to everybody for listening and watching. Remember, be clutch.
Bye.
Peace.